Hello and welcome to this Affinity software tutorial. This came about from a question in an Affinity publisher group, but it sort of pretty much works the same in Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. And the question was about using fractions. Now, when they type and what have you, and getting them to come up looking like fractions. Now, I've got all three programs set up pretty much the same, using the Arial font set in regular and 18 points. So if I just start typing a simple phrase like if it starts typing, hang on, and if I get to the half, if I do the 1 and then the backstroke and then the 2, when I press the space it changes that to the half fraction symbol. And if I put then like half the people, as you can see in Affinity Publisher it automatically changes that to a half. So if I do the same thing in Designer and I put half and then do the half symbol, as you can see it doesn't automatically make that a fraction like it did in Publisher. And if I put this into Photo and do the same thing, as you can see again in Photo it doesn't automatically change that into the half fraction. Now from what I've seen in my very quick investigation, this is the only difference that's between Publisher, Designer and Photo. Now, Publisher is the only one that will sort of automatically change the typing of a number, the backward slash and then another number, into a fraction. Now I don't know quite why there's a difference, but there does seem to be, because all of the products who can use text, and then they can also use the character studio. You'd think they'd be able to use the fractions in the same way. Like I said, that's the only difference that I can find is when you're actually typing. So I'm going to close Affinity Photo and Designer, and because it's just taking up memory and will slow things down, and I'll do all of this in Affinity Publisher, mainly because one, it automatically does this when typing, but also it only does this really if the font that you're using can use fractions, because it needs to have those fractions within the font itself, I think. And to sort of check this out, you need to have the Glyph Browser open. So if I come up to View and Studio and open the Glyph Browser, as you can see, if I can make this a bit bigger, or there we go. So we're on the Arial font. Now the Glyph Browser is available in it is available in Photo, and I'm fairly certain it will be available in Designer as well. But once you open it, you can see all the fonts of in this case the currently used font, but you can change the font and check whichever font you want. But as you can see here, we got the half, quarter and 3/4 symbols available, and I believe further down here we got the 1/8, 3/8, 5/8 and 7/8 fractions, and I don't know whether they've got any others lower down. I don't think so, I can't see any. It's mainly other languages, I think. But I believe that if the fraction is available within the font, it will in Publisher at least automatically change it, because if let's try another one which won't be in there. So look, if I put in 8/10 space, see, it won't change that. So it does need to be in Publisher. It will automatically change it into a fraction if that fraction is available in the font. Let me come down a little bit. So like I was saying, if you have the character studio open, now in Publisher it automatically will be in the studios over here on the right, but in Photo it opens up as a floating studio, and I would imagine it's the same in Designer. But if you come down here, we have the topography section, and if I type the same thing in, so we've got if we go with the 8/10 that I did earlier, 8/10 of the people, if I highlight that 8/10 there, these options were greyed out but they're not anymore. But if I click on that fraction symbol there, it will change that to a fraction. So that is the way around sort of getting fractions in Designer and Photo, but also in Publisher, that aren't available in the font you are using. And the only thing is, once this has been used, I think that now any time, so if we do 2/7 before it, let me highlight again the fractions. 2/7, yeah, so like now it's been used, it will sort of continue to keep typing fractions in the the fraction format. So you will need to sort of highlight some text and turn that off if you don't want that anymore. So I could do 1/10, and now I see, because I've now turned that off, it will no longer be making them into fractions. Let me come down a bit more here. Now let's do this again. Let's do 1/10 again. 1/10. 1/10 of the people. So as you can see, it didn't make that into a fraction because I didn't have it turned on over here, and also it is not an available fraction within this particular font. Now in this topography section, there's a button here with 3 dots on it. If I click on that, it opens up this studio here, and if I come down here further, there is a box. It's in the section figure positions, and it's got a fraction, and if you put a tick into that box and then close that, if I now type the fraction, it will do them all as fractions. So if I can't, it doesn't affect the typing of the text that when you're doing, but when you do a fraction, it will do it as a fraction, and it is not affected by the use of these buttons here because it's sort of turned on permanently. So if you don't want it anymore, you can just come back and take the tick out of that. So that is basically how you can get fractions or at least text that looks like fractions, because I believe there's, I can't remember what the phrase is, but it's something like real fractions and fake fractions, something like that, where like the real fraction is when the number is above a line and then there's another number below the line, whereas these fractions, they're sort of at an angle between the backslash. I don't know how you get sort of the number above the line looking fractions. You can only seem to get this fraction that's using the backslash, but that's the best I can do in answering this person's question. Is if you're doing it in Publisher and the font supports certain fractions, Publisher will automatically change them as you type the number backslash number, or you can use the fraction button in the character studio and just alter one or two fractions if you only got one or two. But if you're going to be using fractions a lot in your document, you can turn it on by the menu from this three dots button and have it on permanently. So sorry, this is probably a little bit disjointed. I have not really practiced very much, but hopefully this will answer this person's question. So thank you for watching and goodbye.